I think we're good.
We're live.
I think we're live.
Hello, and welcome to the 321st episode of the Geekverse Podcast. This is going to be our Outer Worlds review, a game that I've been talking about pretty much even if I don't get the chance to talk about it, I still will just quickly throw it into conversation. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to do a kind of first impressions, not really full review because, we haven't had time to fully dive into it. But yeah, I'm your host, Dylan Muss. I'm joined by Taylor Field. How you doing, Mr. Field?
I'm doing pretty good.
You guys were just recording some Clone Wars retro before I got here?
Yeah, lots of Clone Wars stuff. So make sure, that can be found early access on Patreon because we got the...
Right, because whatever you recorded today probably won't go up for months,
not
years.
For a while. Years,
some
decades.
say decades. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can get all that stuff early on Patreon. There's lots of Clone Wars content up there. Yeah.
Before we hop into this, just a couple quick plugs. Most importantly, November 2nd, 24-hour stream, third annual one. We're raising money for the Extra Life BC Children's Hospital, which, we have a bigger goal than we did last year, but it's been just slamming donations. Today and yesterday, we received at least 7 or 8 here. So big shout outs to Teresa, Wilf, that's, Taylor's father right there, Mackenzie, Shelley, Nick, Clay, Donald, Jason, and Brandon. I hope I didn't forget anyone. Thank you guys so much. Big or small, we appreciate all your donations very much. I think we're over the $300. We're close.
We're very close. Very close.
It literally has been changing by the hour. I'm at work and I go on Twitter and it's been updated or something. So it's been crazy. We appreciate the support. We've never gone in to the stream with this much of a head start. So I mean, my you could say my hair is getting pretty scared because when we hit that donation amount, I'm gonna chop it all off like I did on the first stream. So I feel pretty confident at this point.
I think so.
I don't want to jinx it or anything.
Well, I mean, last stream,
pretty good momentum.
Our goal was 1,000, and we hit that goal. And I feel like
that was close.
It was close. It was down to the seconds.
Yeah.
If we're starting off this stream already with a $500 lead, and we just have that 1,000, then I feel convinced that we can do it.
Yeah, because that's true. Last year we didn't have a huge amount before the stream actually started. It was mostly during. So yeah, it feels pretty good. I'm pretty excited. So yeah, come check us out November 2nd. We're going to be starting at roughly 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, doing some gauntlet matches, doing some fun madness. You and Michael Snell the second are doing some sort of rod or not style thing.
Yeah, there's some punishments, and he wants to do leg waxing. And it's up for debate. I'm
You've
getting
got
the lawyers
forested
involved,
legs,
so I do. The lawyers are involved.
And you wear shorts year round. As I said that last time, and you weren't wearing shorts, but now you actually are.
Now I am. It's getting colder, so now I have to go to shorts.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll plug is just obviously this is a game review / impressions. You may or may not have one for Modern Warfare. How's that going? Because you've had a lot of problems downloading the game.
Yeah.
So that may or may not be coming out sometime this week.
It totally set me back. I'm so happy. The fact that I could pre-download Outer Worlds saved me so much time. So,
and that was probably a reasonable 60 gigs or 70 or something.
Yeah, it was reasonable. So I pre-installed that, and then Modern Warfare was a solid 150 gigabytes of just almost 2.5 days of continuous downloading time. And it was just nauseating. So
that is nauseating.
Finally, I got to play that, but then it set me back to kind of invest more time in Outer Worlds. That being said, I did get to play it, though.
Okay, so you may or may not have a review up, but also you can check out my Link's Awakening review. Travis and Taylor will be reviewing Luigi's Mansion. That comes out right before the stream, so in a couple days. That's kind of crazy.
It's going to be wild.
So when that review's coming out, who knows? But then right after that is Death Stranding. Right after that is Jedi Fallen Order. We probably won't be doing the Pokemon one anymore, but yeah, that's just an insane amount of gaming reviews kind of back to back to back. So we are going to be busy. I mean, we already have 24 hours of gaming right ahead of us, but now we have all these game reviews on top of it. So it's a pretty exciting time as a gamer.
It's nuts. Then you throw in obviously the Mandalorian reviews that we're going to be doing for that too. It's just we're in a massive crunch.
It's going to be fun. It's
going to be good.
November is going to be as equally crazy as October. Let's get into the Outer Worlds. So I have been... so this game was announced at, I believe, Game Awards last year. It was a reveal game like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which that's pretty much the best games for me personally that you could have announced ever. So shout out to Game Awards. I hope they have some other big announcements this year. But I feel like I've been waiting for this game longer than that because, I'm a big fan of Bethesda games, and this is very much a Bethesda-style game. And obviously, I think a lot of where this game comes from is the Fallout New Vegas roots that Obsidian came from as they made one Fallout game for Bethesda. And so I feel like ever since New Vegas is kind of when I've been waiting for this game, honestly, because Fallout I like Fallout 3 and 4. They're decent games, but to me, Fallout New Vegas is like by far, like so far above those games for the RPG elements, for the world building and all that. Yeah, Fallout 4 kind of let me down. Fallout 76 is just a joke. It's an unfinished game that they fucking dropped this subscription service. It's a whole mess. So I feel like my hype for Fallout is just steadily dwindling, and this like feels to me like the spiritual successor to what Fallout New Vegas was as a game, and why that is still one of my favorite games, even though it hasn't aged terribly well. It kind of looks like garbage, and some of the gameplay doesn't play super well anymore. I mean, it's been a few years since I've played it, I guess, but to me, that's a great thing, right? As a big Fallout New Vegas fan, I'm so happy for this game, and I do have some reservations, some things I don't like, but honestly, all my problems are little things that I feel like have a pretty good chance of getting patched. Things that other people will probably complain about online, and then they'll just like, oh yeah, we'll fix that, change it up. So, yeah, mostly it's just like all positive so far. I've probably put about 10 to 15, probably 15 hours into the game so far. I guess like spoiler wise, like I don't know how far you're in, but you're not too far. So really, I don't think we'll be spoiling anything on this cast. We're more just going to be like, it'll be just any sort of spoilers for games, right? Where it's like, learning the systems, learning the mechanics, playing through it and experiencing and learning for yourself. That's the enjoyment that you got to get from playing the game yourself. So there's those general spoilers, but there's not going to be any big story spoilers, because even with myself in these games, I always get distracted and I never just rush the main story. So I don't really have even much to spoil story wise. But yeah, what are your overall thoughts and what is your history with at least New Vegas or like the Bethesda style game?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Bethesda games, I mean, I've always been an Elder Scrolls guy. That's kind of been my go-to. But I wanted to kickstart off, trying to get into like Fallout 3 back in the day, and I played a little bit, and then I got stuck in a building, and I couldn't save or do. I can't remember what I was trying to do, but there were
Classic
guys
Bethesda
around.
bugs.
Yeah, so I ended up being like, well, this is ridiculous, so I stopped. I stopped playing, and then I thought, I'm going to get Fallout New Vegas. I played that. I got much further in that, and I enjoyed it for what I played. And eventually, I think I traded it in because I just wasn't playing anymore. Yeah. But I liked it. It was a good experience. And Outer Worlds, you've definitely been the one in the podcast who's been super hyped for this game. And I definitely, I wasn't planning on getting it, but the fact that it's, on Game Pass.
It's like, why not?
I mean,
right?
Yeah, why not? So I've definitely enjoyed my time on it. And, I've been...
yeah, how far are you?
3-4
hours, something like that.
Yeah, I'm about 4 hours in. I haven't. I'm not sure where like what happens in the story after where I'm at.
Yeah.
But like I've spent most of my time just exploring.
Have you left like the first planet yet?
No.
Okay.
No, I've still been like doing side quests and exploring and stuff like that.
Good. Yeah.
And I've been like getting armor and upgrading and just kind of doing my own thing, but which is totally fine. I'm thoroughly enjoying, and I realize I spend most of my time in areas where I know I can't fight my way out, and I'm just sneaking. And that's another thing too. Coming from playing Modern Warfare and then diving into this,
right?
I went in just shooting up the place, and I died really quick. I thought, okay, I need to get out of this mentality because it's not going to work for this game.
Yeah, it's definitely not as fluid of like gun combat as a Call of Duty. People who make those games every single year for like decades, right? It's definitely not as clean. It's not the cleanest first-person shooter on the market, but I think it's so much more than that as well. Well,
you have to be very tactical with how you approach a situation,
right.
you know, and
definitely.
There's different options to handle it, and I like that. I definitely appreciate it. And you had recommended for me to start on hard, and so that's what I've done. I've been progressing on that difficulty, and I like being able to jump between, my melee weapons and my like shotgun or my pistols, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's pretty like since you can equip from the get-go like 4 weapons. Just like really easily, you'd hit Y to switch between them. I'm saying Y even though I'm playing on PlayStation, it's triangle. But yeah, it makes it so it's really easy to switch between them. And I think you're kind of supposed to, especially early on when you're probably low on ammo and you're like, oh, I ran out of heavy ammo, I got to switch to some sort of light weapon. And then the melee weapons as well. I'm curious, also this cast in general, I think is going to be a little unstructured, a little bit hazy because we're still putting getting our grasp on the game itself. But how do you feel about the melee combat? Because to me, the gun combat feels, it's not like a Call of Duty, but it still feels really good and I enjoy it. However, I felt the melee combat is, I don't want to say clunky, but it just doesn't feel as rewarding or as
like
satisfying as the gun combat.
I felt like it was pretty basic because it was like, okay, tap like the right trigger 3 times. It's just and that's it. You know, that's where I give praise to like Elder Scrolls in the sense where it's like you got your light attack, so you can hold and do like heavier attacks.
That's something
and
that's cool about this game actually, because I guess you haven't gotten that far yet. But you know how the way the leveling up system in this game, if you haven't played it yet, is very much like New Vegas in that each time you level up, you get like 10 skill points that you can allot wherever you want. It starts out pretty general, so it's like you can level up melee weapons that'll level up like one-handed and two-handed, or you can do guns that'll level up your light guns, heavy guns, and whatever the third one is. So it's like general, and then once you hit level 50 in any skill, then you just start leveling them individually. So when you hit, it's either 20 or 40, level 20 or 40, like 20, 40, 80, and 100, I forgot 60, but every 20 levels you get like a new ability for whatever skill you're leveling. So when you get to either 20 or 40 for melee weapons is when you unlock charge attack. So it is something that you unlock. And then I think you also unlock like a swipe attack. So you get more options as you unlock. That's kind of where the roots of Elder Scrolls was. Like if you didn't have a skill in something, you were awful at it. And that was something that they kind of changed over time, but I think this kind of goes back to those roots where if you didn't level one-handed melee weapons early on, then you're going to be very limited. Your character themselves is very limited on like what they can actually do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that actually. That's good to know. I really do enjoy like the level progression system or the skill not skill tree, but like adding when you level up you get the points and you can stack them in. I've been putting most of my points into the dialogue because I really like engaging in the talk, and whenever I can lie to people, definitely. I'm lying. And it's so satisfying when it pays off.
I like that you get XP for that kind of stuff too, right? Because it incentivizes you to build your character however you want. And I mean there has been a few situations where I feel like the only way you can possibly like complete the mission is through combat, but there is also just vast majority of missions you can like talk your way through, or you can bust your way through with big weapons, or you can just say no, or whatever you want. There's a lot of options there, so that's pretty awesome. I will say on the melee weapons, they have some like really creative designs. I really like the look of them. They're really like bright, and there's like just like a kind of poison green blade, and there's like a fire scythe, some pretty crazy weapons, whereas the guns are kind of more simple, at least from what I've encountered so far, like more kind of generic, whereas they got pretty creative with the melee weapons. So
I definitely get, maybe it's just me, but I feel like a little bit of like Borderlands vibe.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I have.
Huge.
There is a few things that feel Borderlandsy in maybe some of the humor or like the bright, colorful world and characters. Some of the weapon, it isn't like millions of weapons like Borderlands has, but you get like random effects on the same weapons, so you can kind of see it that way. And then even just like having vending machines around that you're selling and buying stuff from, like I definitely have gotten some Borderlands vibes as well, on top of like the Bethesda stuff. And I think in terms of comparing it to Bethesda, it captures a lot of that, the world building and the like tons of side quests and whatnot and the character building. But I think that some of the things that you could say it lacks on is just like the scale, right? Like Bethesda games, Skyrim, you can load up the game from one end, you start in Markarth, whatever. You can just walk to the entire end of the map if you want to. It would probably take you an hour, half an hour. I don't know how long it would take you. But Outer Worlds is much more sectioned off. So it's like you go to a landing pad and you can go to a few kind of highlighted areas, but there isn't like, you're not really just getting lost walking for like 10 minutes straight, which is, I don't know, it's not really a con. It's just like that's how it kind of differs from Bethesda game. I think in Fallout, that's a lot more justifiable. It fits the world, but also you have that sweet soundtrack that bumps you and keeps you interested as you're doing that. Whereas if you were doing that in this game and it didn't have like an interesting soundtrack like that, I think you'd just get a bit bored. But I think the result of that is it doesn't feel as open. Like you can kind of see, oh, there's a bunch of rocks kind of around the edge. Like this is kind of where you're being corralled in to stay into. Yeah. And so it doesn't feel as expansive, even though from my experience so far, like there is a lot of places, because you're going across the galaxy, right? You're going to different planets and space stations and things like that. So you definitely get a lot of locations still, but it's not as like one world that you can walk from one to the other on, which I think is an interesting take, because then you can get a whole bunch of different environments that like logically make sense. It's like, well, if this planet looks completely different from this one, well, they probably should, because they're different planets.
Yeah.
So that I think those are kind of maybe the key differences, is just like the scale from Bethesda. But I think the things that they focus on, to me, it seems like the dialogue was definitely a big one, and the companion system. So you got there's kind of one companion you can get early on. I'm guessing you grabbed her, Parvati.
Yeah.
So that's the companion system to me it was something that interested me greatly from the trailers and hearing the devs talk about it before the game came out. But I've just been like blown away by it. It's really, really interesting because always in those Bethesda games you can have like one person kind of tag along with you, and New Vegas was the best one in terms of giving you options of like your companion will stand this far from you and they have this kind of disposition. You can dump weapons on them and stuff. But I think they've really streamlined that in this game because in this, you have like a ship and a crew that you're guiding instead of just one person. So you can have like up to 6 people in your crew. I think it's up to 6. At least that's what it's like from the beginning. And you can kind of switch them out depending on what mission you're going to. So like, let's say you want some really aggressive like combat-based characters, you can bring them along. Or if you want someone to bring someone along who has like story purposes to come to a certain town and give you some information, you can do it that way. But then you also have those options where you can choose how far the companion stands from you. You can choose how aggressive they are, or if they don't even attack at all. You can change their weapons. You can even give them skills and stuff like that. So like the companions are also something that you kind of build along your character as you're leveling up and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really satisfying system. I really like it a lot.
The I can't remember her name, but that first companion you do get.
Yeah, Parvati.
Yeah, I had such a hard time with her. I feel like when there's moments where I'm trying to sneak around and be very, careful, I tell her to wait.
Yeah.
And I progress further and up, and then all of a sudden I see her running in and she dies. And I think, well, crap, now I don't want to lose her, so I go back to my last save and then I start all over again.
Right.
And it happened consistently.
So that is something that in a bit I want to talk about like the difficulty, because I tried out the hardest difficulty and I have some problems with it. But as for the companions, like that is something that I do feel is lacking. Just ability to say, hey, wait here, and then I'm going to go do this thing, go sneak around. From my experience, it seems like they don't alert enemies, and I think they did that because they know they aren't great at sneaking around. So that's what it seems like to me, but maybe I could be wrong on that if you've had an opposite experience. But yeah, it would be nice if you had an option that could get them to wait, because if so far from my experience, if I'm in a spot where they're just really blowing my cover, they're really not doing it for me, I can just send them back to the ship and they'll just go to the ship, which is fine. But then if you want to go get them back, you'd have to go back to your ship. You'd have to go through the loading screen, pick them up, and then drag them back to where you were. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know why there isn't just a wait feature. I guess maybe there's something where if you just like forget them there, they would stand there forever. I'm not sure what the reason is. I think they could eventually just make their way back to the town or something. But yeah, I feel like a direct wait feature would be good, especially with, if you're playing a sneaky type of character and they aren't so good at it. Like I said, from my experience, they don't really blow your cover too much, even if they physically should be. It's like they don't alert enemies or something. But I don't know. I would have to kind of test that out per se. But
there are times when I do appreciate like having the companion with you, and especially like when you get to like tell them to do some of their attacks, the
combat
it's
attacks.
Super sick.
Uh-huh.
I love that feature.
It's funny too because I will admit it's a bit janky. Like if you get them to use, at least with her and another companion I have, like their ability is a kind of like a melee one. And it's from like wherever they are, if as soon as you use that ability, they use it instantly. Yeah. So it's like they teleport like 100 feet. Like it goes, because one of the companions I got later, he does like a drop kick. He like does a jumping drop kick, and it just kind of reminded me of that scene in Inglourious Bastards where Dominic DeCoco and the other guy just like run out of that bathroom with like the punch gun thing, and it's like slow mo, but then he just kind of like teleports and punches them, and then it goes back to real time. It really reminded me of that, so I find it kind of funny, but I will say it is a bit janky, and I'm not sure if companions have more than one of those, because I guess the way I played the game is I started with one character, and I kind of had like really high deception, like persuasive skills, and like mostly melee, and I wasn't really feeling the melee combat a ton, and I also wanted to try the other difficulties, so after like 4 hours on that character, I started the second character that I've been playing on since and enjoying it a lot more. I guess I don't know why I was bringing this up. Why was I bringing this up? I guess for the companion, so the companion abilities, they get them at like level 20 when you have 20 in like determination, inspiration. I can't remember what the skill is called. So from what I've experienced, like they only have one ability each. So I'm not sure if you can unlock more later as they get higher level. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But so far, from what I've experienced, just a couple of kind of melee attacks, which are really strong. But yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy when they
Mhm.
like totally knock the enemy down. And
Yeah.
I at first I was like, oh, it's an insta kill, they're dead. And then I'm like, why is the companion still shooting at them?
Right.
You know, and then I get back up and attack. But
Yeah, and I guess the good thing with companions, even if they do die, like on normal or hard mode, if they die, as soon as the combat is over, they get back up and they keep going. I don't know if you've noticed that, or if you
okay,
just
now you
have you just-
mentioned that,
do you
and
just
I've
keep-
just been
as soon as they die, you just reload.
Oh my god, that's annoying.
So there's a only on Supernova do companions die permanently, but yeah, normally after the combat is over, after the music stops, whatever it is, they just get right back up. So
okay,
if
good
you
to
dive
know.
back in, that's maybe a tip for you there.
Okay,
That
yeah,
is something
helps.
that annoys me with the higher difficulty, but I'll talk about that in a bit. I think the other thing I wanted to comment on, there's a few things because I love the companion system so much, but one is just the dialogue, right? Because if you have a companion with you, they'll chime in on conversations. So just in between what a character is saying, they'll just like drop a line in. Maybe they'll interact with the NPC for a bit. Sometimes they'll just want to talk to you about stuff, and I don't know how they did that system, but it's really, really well done because as I've had, I kind of have like 3 companions in my crew right now, and I've kind of swapping them out depending on where I'm going. And yeah, like I don't know if they just have like, okay, for this particular dialogue option, like each companion has one line that they would use, because it feels more organic than that. It just feels like depending on what a character's backstory is, or if they've been on this planet before, if they've met this person, they might have more or less to say. And that's something that just really has blown me away. I mean, the dialogue in general, I think, is really, really good. One, from like the player's perspective, you have a lot of fun lines. Like you can be just kind of an asshole, like a smart ass, or you can be really kind. You can be just really silent. You can really role play your whatever character you're playing. And the companions just bounce off that really, really well.
Yeah, even with other characters in the world too you encounter, it's not like, okay, here's just your, you start a conversation, here's just a whole bunch of dialogue options.
Mhm.
I found that when I was kind of poking and just choosing different options and engaging in more conversation and kept digging, then I would find new things like like be very charismatic, and you could do certain
Right.
other
Yeah, there's a lot
options.
of those skill checks in there that made it from Fallout New Vegas, and I think I want to say even Fallout 3 had that. I don't really think Fallout 4 had much of it, but yeah, just those skill checks. So you might have something where someone's talking about like a broken like TV in their bar or something. I was in a sports bar, they had a broken TV. So if you have like an engineering skill leveled up high enough, then maybe you can like chime in on the conversation and say like, oh, I heard you mention this. I think this is a solution. And then the charisma, lying, all that, those ones come up a lot more because obviously they're directly dialogue based, but those are really fun as well because you feel like you're cheating the system. It's like I would have had to pay 1,000 bits here, but instead I could just smooth talk my way through this one.
Absolutely.
And I love that so very much. It's like I tend to play characters like that in these games when I can. I try to really max out the like persuasion or dialogue skill tree just because I think it makes for a lot more fun interactions, and you can get away with a lot more stuff without having
really
to do the
can.
dirty work, and
Yeah.
that's pretty satisfying.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy like stealing and things. Like usually in Elder Scrolls, I'm stealing all the time.
Big
And
thief, yeah.
I feel a little bit kind of I don't know, nervous, I guess, because I just see there's things just lying around all the time.
Yeah.
I want to take it,
At least it tells you if you're stealing or not.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I have not yet stolen anything, so I don't know what happens. Like if I'm gonna get like attacked or they're gonna come at me.
From my experience, it really depends. Like if you get caught for it, if someone sees you, then I guess depending on what kind of character they are, they might come up and confront you on it. I've had all sorts of different situations. I've had people like the dialogue options come up almost like in Elder Scrolls when you get caught. Like you can either pay the fine or you can go to jail or whatever it is. So you kind of have similar things where you can like bribe someone, or you can smooth talk them and say, oh no, it's okay, I was just on my way, I didn't steal anything. So you can kind of get through it in different ways, and I think it probably depends on your disposition with different factions and stuff, how much the people of that town, for example, like you. They may or not be more or less lenient on how much you steal. So that's pretty cool element as well. But yeah, they really nailed the dialogue. I think the only thing that I don't know if they've changed it at this point. The only thing that's a little weird to me is really static camera angles. Like it's just a very zoomed in picture of their face, and like the camera angle doesn't move at all, and then it will just like cut to your companion. No, there's no transition. It's just a quick cut. You never see your character's face because obviously it's not a voiced protagonist, which to me is the best thing ever. Please, Bethesda, stop fucking doing that. That made Fallout 4 just. I'm not here to talk about Fallout 4, but yeah, the camera angles do feel a bit static to me, and I think take a little bit away from the dialogue and could make it a little bit more lively if they had some more interesting camera angles. But I think part of that is because your character isn't like voicing the lines. Maybe they could have animated that, but I don't know if it'd really be worth it. But have you noticed that, or is that just a me thing? I think I compare it to Fallout 4 because they put a lot of effort into making like each conversation really cinematic, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes sense. When I think about it now, I can definitely I remember it. It does cut very quickly to your
and the camera doesn't move at
like,
all. It's just
it's like very stationary and not moving or whatever. I don't have that kind of comparison because I never played Fallout 4, so I can't really make that.
I can't even remember what New Vegas. I want to say New Vegas was very similar actually. I can't remember if it was fully static though. Mm-hmm. As for companions, I had a couple more things. One that I think is really cool. Whenever you get a companion, they and they're not with you directly, they go back to the ship and they just kind of chill out there. They might hang out in the kitchen or the engineering bay, whatever it is. But they also all have their own room, and I think the level of detail there is really well done. Each one of them will decorate their room in a certain way, and they'll have like memorabilia. So, for example, Parvati has like a picture of her father, and so you can like examine it and check it out. Or she'll have like this wrench. It's like a special wrench that her dad gave her or something. So there's a lot of character development there, or not really development, but just like some backstory or making them feel more personal, just in straight up the decorating of their room, which I think is really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, and that extends past just the companions, like even your actions, your choices. You'll pick up things in the world. Like, for example, I just found this random rug in like a cave. It was just like these dudes were hanging out in this cave, I guess. I took this rug and then it just like automatically got put in my ship in one of the rooms. So just like decoration. And then even, there's one interesting point that I'm not going to spoil for you, but just I made a choice in a mission, you could say, and let's say there was a trophy and or a reward that I got that my character put on display, and that was something I noticed because in my first playthrough I went through this mission making one choice. In my second playthrough I did a different decision, and like the character decorated the room differently based on that. So yeah, the level of detail there in character and just the little things and making the ship really feel like a home is it's pretty outstanding. I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool.
I just those attention to detail things really stand out to me in these kind of games. So what else did I have to say on the crew system? I don't know. I think it's just fun to switch characters around. And then I think the last thing I'll say is I in one mission I decided to go with the lethal route and I assassinated this lady instead of letting her go or something. And then one of my companions was really upset about it, and still to this very moment is kind of just every time I talk to him, he just has this grimace on his face and he doesn't want to talk to me. So the decisions you make as a player have an impact on your companions and how much they like you. And I'm sure I could win back his favor doing certain things, but that's just really cool that he reacted to that. And I mean, each companion has like a quest line that you can go through as well, and you can help them with whatever their problem or problems are. And I think that's pretty cool as well. So it adds so much to the game, and like it's clearly something to me that they focused on a lot and really wanted to nail. So yeah, I think with a couple more improvements of like the AI there, could have made it just even like exceptional, even better. But as it stands right now, I think there's so much attention to detail and so much care there that it's really satisfying. And I think we'll add so much to replayability, right? If you have one companion with you the whole game, just to see the things that they add to conversation or things they notice, or even you'll go to a place and like Parvati, you like go out to the water and she'll comment that she like remembers this place as like a kid. Her and her dad would come and hang out here. So they just comment on like the world too, which is, oh my God, it's so cool. I love those details. It really makes you feel like you're part of that world and that they are part of that world as well, instead of just being like Lydia from Skyrim, who's just chills in your fucking apartment all day and does nothing, has no life. She just sits there,
Well, it's unique because then you don't even feel like, yes, it is a single player game, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a single player game because it feels like it's a world,
Yeah,
everything is interacting.
It's a living breathing world for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
So let's transition that into talking about the world a bit, because they fucking nailed it as far as I'm concerned. Like, one, just the visual style, like it's very bright and colorful. And that's totally fitting to like the theme, right? It's this world that corporations have kind of taken over. And it's kind of take on like, what would these colonies be like in a world where instead of as like political leaders, it's just like corporations that have so much money that they bought out these towns or these people or these restaurants or everything, right? So when you first get to Edgewater, this is like the starting town. There's you'll talk to someone and they'll just like in the middle of a conversation they'll just like drop an advert, right? They're like, make sure to buy Rizzo's like number 3 soda or something, right? Just little things like that. And then in certain cities there's like ad drones that just walk by just advertising stuff. There's obviously advertisement everywhere, just like every fucking corner you could possibly imagine there's some sort of advertisement. There's like intercoms that are just advertising stuff. It's all over the place, and it's a really interesting setting, a really kind of weird, and it's like dystopian, but it feels like, holy shit, what if this is Disney in like 100 years where they just have so much money that, instead of like Kelowna, we just live in like Disney Town 438, and it's everywhere you go, there's just advertisement just reminding you that they own all of this and they buy everyone out. And there's so much of that in the game that's really interesting, because that's also kind of the core I guess conflict, like overarching conflict, at least from how far I'm in. That's what it seems like. Like in New Vegas, right? You go to the Strip, and there's like different power players that are kind of controlling the Strip. That's like the main spot, right? That's the place where everyone wants to go in the Mojave. And so depending on what story actions you take, it like you'll favor certain factions, and then that ties into the world and the story, what happens there. And I feel the same thing is happening here, where there's certain factions that are for this corporation, work for this corporation, or there's ones that hate that corporation, and there are corporations biting against each other, competing. And it's just really satisfying, right? Because it feels like there's all these moving parts, and it feels like you might be doing your actions are inherently going to be favoring like one side or the other. So everything you do feels like it has a little bit more weight to it. And yeah, it definitely mirrors that kind of 3-pronged like system that I guess Fallout New Vegas had, at least so far where I'm at. It feels like there's kind of 3 major corporations, and there's smaller ones as well. But that's a huge thing with the world building that I've found, right? Because it almost reminds you of New Vegas, where you just like from the starting of that game, right? You can see the lights in the distance. You're like, man, I want to go to the Strip. That's the place to be. But that's like this whole game is just like, overstimulation, right? You're just getting bombarded by all these ads and these characters and these bright lights. And sometimes I just get lost, like looking at the artwork on the wall or watching like a TV program or something. Like it's just a really loaded up world. Like you can tell they put detail in like every town and city.
Yeah, I found several times when I'm like sneaking in a compound and I'm like watching as the enemy is like walking around waiting for my moment to strike, and then I get lost because I'll be looking and I'm like, oh, there's a ship flying and kind of taking off in the background. That's cool. And then I kind of like follow it. I'm getting distracted, because it's gorgeous. You look up at the sky at night and it's just a beautiful visual.
And every like planet has a different kind of landscape that you're seeing, right? Whether it's the rings around the planet or the planets off in distance or the amount of ships flying around.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous. I do want to say too, I haven't encountered much of the wildlife, but I love the different kind of animals.
Very colorful, just like big raptor type creatures. It does feel very Fallout-esque, right? In that game is just like here's a scorpion that has a shit ton of radiation, so it's a giant scorpion. This is obviously these aren't like Earth creatures you find on Earth. But it feels like the same sort of thing where they're just like blown up. So find like a giant purple gorilla that can like teleport through the ground and throw rocks at you. And it's like, it's fucking terrifying. And raptors that are like shooting acid at you. And it's definitely a very wild world. And depending on like what planet you're on too, like they have different levels of, or I guess different danger levels of like the enemies there. So, and just different wildlife in general. So it's, definitely a lot of detail put into that as well.
So I haven't obviously got far into, the story to experience like the crafting system and all that kind of stuff. So how does like when you get supplies or like resources from animals and stuff, so what do those kind of like apply to?
So resources, one, you like a lot of them will just drop like meat or something that you can consume, because as weird and alien as these creatures seem, I think it's just like because of the world, the character you are, the timeline, it's like you can eat that meat. It's not like just some weird poisonous alien meat. So I think some of you can eat, and it'll just give you like that kind of health buff that all the basic food does, is just like increase your health regeneration for a certain amount of time. But you can also just get like random parts or something. like just random pieces of the body of a tooth or I don't know, an eyeball or something like that. You can just sell. I don't know if any of them actually go back into the crafting system. It seems like they're kind of just either to consume for HP or to just sell and get some bits back.
Okay.
Yeah, from my experience, like the way the crafting system works is you have mods that you like. There's two sets of mods. There's armor mods and there's weapon mods. So each gun, like a assault rifle, for example, will have, you can attach a barrel and a magazine, or a magazine and a scope. And then a pistol is like you can just attach a magazine or something, right? And then you just have like a pool of all the upgrades that you've unlocked, and you can just kind of put them on whatever item you want. And then different items have different slots, and then armor as well can have up to like multiple slots of different kinds. So you can have like stealth ones, so you could get one that makes your walking around quieter, or you can get ones that gives you more like storage space, things like that. So it's a very simple crafting system, and it's nothing like what Fallout 4 is in terms of like having to go gather like screws from like a toy car in the factory next door or something like that. Like it is very simple. Maybe a bit too simple. Like maybe there could have been a bit more there, a little bit more customizing your weapons, especially because it does feel like, as I said before, like the gun weapons do feel pretty simple. So maybe there could have been a bit more there. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I can't remember. I guess even just armor parts, like you have kind of like a costume, and then you have like a headpiece.
Yeah.
So you really only have two pieces there. So it is pretty basic for sure. There is some fun upgrades you can put on there, but yeah, I wouldn't say that the crafting system is anything to write home about. It seems like it's serviceable, and that's fine. So that's what I'd say about the crafting system, I guess.
That's
like
always,
I don't really have too much to say about it, I guess.
That's good to know. I found that very informative. I'm always definitely one for a good crafting system. I like to see, what resources can I get, what can I build, what can I like. And that's why I love Elder Scrolls so much.
Yeah.
That's why I just
I think that's something that Bethesda took a while to get to that point, but they have landed in a nice spot where I think sometimes Fallout 4 can be a bit tedious when you're trying to find like adhesive. That was like the thing for me. I was like, no matter what the fuck I was trying to build, it was always adhesive that I needed. So I'd always be picking up duct tape, and it was kind of fun where it's like you start to look for things in the world that, I could take apart that toy car for some screws. I can look for that to find screws instead of just finding this scrap of screws. And it could be a bit tedious, but overall I think it was a big success. I think it was something they did really well, and just see it live action as you see your different upgrades and what it looks like on your weapon was pretty satisfying. So yeah, that's something that they definitely weren't focusing on in this game. They just kind of put it in there so you could upgrade your weapons. But I think it's good at least that you have multiple ways of upgrading, like as we mentioned, the skill tree, the perks, the weapons and armor, and then your companion abilities. And then even like drugs on top of that, like that's something as well where you kind of have like your basic, what is the stim pack in Fallout, right? It's just like the quick heal. And it's cool in this game, you can unlock slots of like things you can put in that inhaler. So for example, sometimes in Fallout, I'll play a character who's like addicted to alcohol because it like buffs your HP and maybe your charisma. I can't remember exactly. It buffs something like temporarily, but whenever you run out, when you're hungover, then you have like withdrawal effects. But as long as you keep drinking, then your character keeps the bonuses. It's kind of like vampirism in Skyrim, really, where you have to keep up to date with it. But if you want to micromanage that, then you have a much stronger character. So you can kind of do that in here as well. And I like that they put it right in the inhaler. That way it's really easy. You don't have to sift through your inventory, which you kind of have to do because they don't have like a quick bar menu like Skyrim does, for example. So I think that's a pretty good system. It's another way you could really buff your character. And that's like the more extremes, right? Where you have to be really on top of it, but those are the biggest upgrades. So yeah, even though the crafting isn't amazing, I feel like there's enough there character building wise that it keeps it interesting. Even just the skill points I find really fun, right? You get 10 per level, and so you can invest them all into like sneak if you really want to buff that up to the next next 20 to get the next upgrade. Or you can just kind of, what I'll usually do is like focus on one thing. I'll put like 5 points into sneak, and then I'll put like 1 or 2 into medical, 1 or 2 into dialogue, and I'll kind of just slowly level up my character a bit more. And I really liked that in New Vegas, and I was pretty sad when they changed the system in Fallout 4. I really don't like what they did there, so I'm glad that this is sticking with the kind of New Vegas and Fallout 3 style system of upgrading personally.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the upgrading because I was like, oh, wow, 10 points. Like, this is great. I'm just going to, amp up a bunch of this dialogue here. And I like how it does explain, how everything
And you get level ups, very consistently.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem to me... Like, yes, you need more and more XP each time you level up, but it seems like the further you get, the bigger XP reward you get from those completing those missions. So to me, I've honestly, since the beginning of the game to my character's level 16 now, it's been consistent. I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually right on the dot. Like every half an hour, you're getting one level up or something.
Yeah,
it feels because you get a lot from completing a mission. You get them from just as we mentioned, skill checks and conversation. You get them from combat, so you get them all over the place. Yeah, it's pretty satisfying.
Yeah, it is 100%. And I what was I gonna say? Yeah, leveling I really enjoy, and the menu too, just kind of cycling through. It's very smooth. It's very transitional.
Yeah, I think the menu is great. What do you think about the size of the text? Have you noticed that?
I had to lean forward a few times.
It's fucking microscopic, man. I have never seen a game in memory that has this small text. I'm over here with laser enhanced 2020. And it's I'm having a lot of problems seeing individual words or letters or something, getting a little bit confused, and someone's knocking on the door. Welcome. It's not. I thought it was Travis, but it's actually his daughter. Sorry, Gwen, you haven't played Outer Worlds. I hope Travis doesn't let you play. Jesus, where was I?
The 2020 vision.
Yeah. So 2020. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, the text is very small. Other than that, I think the menu's pretty good. The map moves very slowly, maybe a bit too slow.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to identify where things are as well. Even on when you're going from planet to planet, it's just it's a small screen to see all the planets in the solar system, but even that to just scroll across takes a while. It's kind of weird. But other than those two minor gripes, which I think are things that they could patch, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are complaining about the size of the text. If we both notice it, I'm sure a lot of other people have. So that's something that I think they could easily change. It's kind of wild to me that it's not in the settings from the get-go, honestly. The fact that it hasn't been brought up to them actually maybe is a concern that they don't think it's a problem. They're not going to change it, but who knows? Maybe now that everyone has their hands on it, they'll bring it into a patch or something.
Yeah.
As for the map, it's not a huge deal to me. If they don't change that, I don't really care. It's a very, very minor gripe for me. But yeah, other than that, I think you mentioned it. The menu is really easy to bump around. Between the bumpers and the triggers, you can just get everywhere you need to go really quickly. I like that your companions are just another tab on the menu as well, so it's not like you have to sift through 3 or 4 menus to get to them. It's very quick. And then the all the icons and stuff are really good. So even though the text can be hard to see, it's really easy to find where you're trying to get to. So
yeah,
I think they did a good job with the menu. Do you? Because you're a big Skyrim guy. Do you miss the hotkey or the quick menu feature? Because you get, as we said, you get 4 weapons that you can unlock, that you can equip at a time. That's more than you'd ever really need. But I sometimes think it's nice. Obviously, you have your HP is just on the left trigger or bumper, so you always have that. But I did kind of like having the quick menu in Skyrim. I think it's especially for console, it makes it just easier to have a few things on lock.
Yeah, it's a perfect feature. And I didn't actually clue into that until you said something, but I think that would be something that would be very beneficial to this, actually. I love that you can have, the 4 weapon slots and cycle through them. I think that's brilliant. But yeah, just to throw in a few items into there, that would make it so much easier than, pausing, going in.
Yeah, I wonder if it's to do with the D-pad being taken up by companion stuff, right? Because you have left and right, D-pad is for your companion's abilities, up is to order them to do something, and then down is to bring them back to you. So I wonder if that's it, because they already kind of had those 4 buttons, which might be inventory stuff. Typically, they had them there for companion stuff. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Or overall, I don't really think that's a big problem. It's just a minor thing. That's the pretty much all my problems with the game are just little minor things like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, the text to me is the biggest problem I have with the game, and that's it's a problem, but it's not game breaking. It's not I can't see what's on screen. But I think a lot of people would have that problem, right?
Yeah.
People who have worse vision might really be struggling with that.
Or some people are playing on small TVs.
Yeah, exactly. And fuck. The people playing on Nintendo Switch when that comes out?
Oh.
Yeah, right. They have to change that. that gives me faith, actually. Now that I think about it, there's no way that version of the game releases without the ability to change your text size or something, and that gives me hope that whenever that happens, that they can put that hotfix into the console and PC versions as well to tweak that up.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we kind of got a little off track, I just want to mention a couple more things about the world design aspect. As we mentioned, I think we're both like big fans of it, but I've been to like a few different cities now, and they all have a very distinct feel. Like obviously the worlds, the different planets do in terms of the fauna and the animals there and things like that. But even just the cities themselves, like Edgewater feels very much like that classic like first town or city you encounter in a game. It's very basic, a little bit run down. There's a few points of interest, but overall it's not really that great of a place. It's like, for all the bright lights there are in this game, there's a few of them in that town, but not really. You can tell that, I mean, it is a place that's kind of neglected by the corporation that owns it, and that like shows in its feel. Like it does feel very run down, and there's like plague, and there's like before you walk into the town, there's just like a massive graveyard, right? So it really sets the scene there as like a bleak place. So that they nailed. Byzantium is this place that in the early game they're always talking it up. It's like this beautiful haven, and it definitely feels like that when you get there. It actually reminded me a lot of Dishonored 2, the world design of that game, because the buildings are just very tall, and like when you go into a building, like the roof is just really high above you, and it kind of makes you feel like smaller, or just feels like a really grand place. So that like even just the design of the hotels, the shops in that town remind me a lot of Dishonored 2. So as a big Dishonored fan, that's really cool. And then when I finally got to Monarch, that place feels interesting because that's the one that's like not really affiliated with the corporation. They've kind of negated themselves away from that, and it has a really interesting feel. It feels not run down or neglected like Edgewater, but it feels very low key. It almost feels like a Western town. It doesn't have like the desert feel, but it reminds me of like Tatooine. It reminds me of like a Western sort of town, and just like the buildings are small, kind of one floor, maybe 2 stories maximum. Very simple sort of place as well. So from all the towns and cities I've been to, and then even like Groundbreaker is the one. It's just like on a ship, and it feels a lot like Rivet City actually from Fallout 3, which is just that there's not a lot of cities in Fallout 3, but it's the one that takes place on like that giant tanker, the giant ship. I don't know if you ever got to that point in the game, but it's just kind of the other main city you go to. It's just a weird city because it's on a ship, so it's just kind of putting rooms or shops or wherever they kind of make sense, and that's how I kind of feel about Groundbreaker. So a lot of like reminiscent areas, but so far like they all, as we mentioned before, like kind of have that setting based on what corporation they're for, like how much the corporation actually cares about them. If they're not affiliated with the corporation, they all kind of have their own unique feel. I would say one criticism I'll throw at it, and maybe this is not totally fair, but obviously as a big Bethesda fan, Bethesda game fan, not really a big fan of them right now based on their decisions, but I think I've forever spoiled myself on a lot of games when I was like just a young little kid and I played Morrowind, right? Played that game when I was like probably 7 or 8 years old or 9. I don't know how old I was. I was very young. And in that game, when I could go anywhere I wanted in the entire world, I could go into every single building. That like just changed the way I looked at games forever, and is why it still stands as one of my favorite games of all time. So when I'm playing a game like Outer Worlds that comes out in like 2019, and there's like a ton of houses or buildings that I can't go into, it just feels like, okay, I kind of want that. Like I don't really need it. Maybe there's no story to be told there, but it kind of adds a lot to the world, right? Like in Morrowind, every single house belongs to someone in the town, whether they're in the house hanging out or they're walking around the town. Same thing for Oblivion, same thing for Skyrim. Less so in the Fallout games. Like there's just like settler or something. It's just instead of having an actual name and story, they're just titled generic settler, and they just kind of walk around. Not everyone necessarily has a house, but I feel like for this game it would make sense, right? Like there's just a lot of what they call residents in this game. Just people walk around. They don't have a name. You can't initiate dialogue with them. Same with most of the guards as well. And it's just something that I think adds a lot to the world. One, talking to little like commoners, people who don't have a story to tell is almost adds a lot to the world building, right? Because you just talk to them about what the life is like here, or who they are, or why they're here, so things like that. And then even just like going into houses is fun to me. I just like to see the design they have. I like to see what kind of houses they have, what kind of stuff they would live with in this world. So there's not a lot of that. Like most of the places you can go into are like bars or shops, or there's like a haberdashery. You can go into like this hair cutter place. Points of interest, places that have missions or stories that are important, but there's not really the extraneous stuff, which is something that I miss a little bit, especially when I was walking around Monarch. That one to me the most felt like, why can't I go into this building? Like I can't go into many buildings in this town, and that kind of took me out of it a bit. Mm-hmm. So I think Edgewater is pretty good for the most part. It is a pretty small town, but that's one thing I would say against the world building. But other than that, I think they just nailed it with how much detail there is, and they don't have as many resources as Bethesda, so they can't fill every single house, or maybe they do, and that was just something they didn't want to focus on because it doesn't fit the core gameplay, and that's totally understandable. But it's something that I notice a lot as someone who's been playing Bethesda games for 15 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's something I can appreciate too. In Elder Scrolls, I love, especially in Skyrim, just I scope up my joints, and then
exactly.
at nighttime I go into these houses
for the thievery aspect too.
Yeah,
right? It's so much
just
fun.
stealing things. You go upstairs to the bedroom and everyone's asleep and you're just creeping around. Or sometimes you'll just be in a house and then all of a sudden like a fight will break out downstairs. Like they're in their own element and you're just hiding. Yeah,
the schedules is something that I think Skyrim and Oblivion kind of did it first, but did it really well, right? Where they go out and do their things during the day and they come home and sleep at night, and that's like, that's a level of detail that no one really does except for Bethesda. It's just like that's the kind of things they focus on at the result of having very buggy and glitchy games. This game is not that. That's one thing it doesn't carry over from Bethesda games. I've had 0 crashes. I've had a couple like little bit of glitches in terrain, but nothing that was like I had to reload a save because I got glitched out. It was just like, I'm stuck here for like 10 seconds because I put myself in a little nook or something.
Yeah, which is very nice. It feels, I'm happy, like a polished, good game.
It is polished.
Yeah.
Bethesda can't claim that on fucking anything. Oh my God. Where do we want to jump to next? Let's talk about some quests a little bit. So you've mostly been side questing. I've mostly been side questing. I'm not even entirely sure what the main quest is, like what path of storylines that is. But as we kind of said earlier, I think there's a really good mix of a kind of combat-based mission where you maybe have to go take out some bandits or something. Like when you get to Edgewater, you can see like this bounty board, and then you can go in, talk to the officer, and find out where these bandits are, and go take them out. So that's like obviously a combat-based mission. But there's a really good mix of missions where there obviously is a lot of like classic fetch quests. But there's also one where you just I had to go into like the sewers and collect this guy's rats that went missing because he left them out of the room. There's like this really weird mission where you go into a house and something's like really not right. Something's really weird, and you find out they're like cannibals, and it's just like this weird little storyline that it's kind of funny because in Fallout New Vegas, one of the factions in on the strip were cannibals. I think it was the White Glove Society. Spoilers, New Vegas. So I don't know why Obsidian's obsessed with cannibals, but I guess they brought that back.
Yeah.
So there's even missions where you just gotta like, this one person's like too nervous to ask this person on a date, so you have to go and do that for them. And there's a lot. There's like some weird, quirky little missions, but I like that there's a really good mix of combat and non-combat missions. That's something I missed from the early. Like Morrowind had a lot of that as well. It's something they kind of ditched for Oblivion and Skyrim. Most missions are go to this place, fight some things, get my item, come back. Mm-hmm. And Fallout kind of, for the most part, is like that as well now. So I'm definitely down for some non-combat missions, especially as we're talking about like the character building aspect. If you don't want to focus on that as much, you kind of need to. You probably need either melee or guns, possibly to some degree, but you can still get a lot done and get a lot of XP without having to fight things. And I think that's definitely welcome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes the world feel real, because not everyone's story would naturally be like, I need you to fight these bandits for me, right?
Yeah, and that's something I appreciate. I enjoy, the fact that all these quests are, different and a change of pace, because it stops it from being repetitive. And that's the one thing, that's the problem with so many games, like I'll go to like Assassin's Creed, for example,
Ooh,
games like
shitting on his own game.
I know, a little bit. Games like that, it kind of turns into be a repetitive thing. It's just, it's this linear kind of story, but then it's, assassination, that's it. But in this case, it's definitely more open world, and that's one of the benefits of having a game like this is because, okay, you can have all these quests that are very different. It's not the same thing, diving in through different things. And again, it builds up on top of the world you're already experiencing, and then, it expands on the characters, and those characters can connect you to other things in the storyline and the overall world itself, which is just, that's the aspect that I really love.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like these storylines, these decisions, these quests have consequences, right? Like there's obviously the Edgewater one is like, do you side with the town or do you side with this kind of outside village? And that's kind of reminiscent of in Fallout 3, the start of the game, and you're kind of like, you go to Megaton, it's the first little town you go to, and you can kind of side with them or Tenpenny Tower, and you're kind of destroying one or the other. And that's like a big ramification, right? Because for the rest of the game, you can no longer go to that town because that town is burnt to a crisp or something. It's not quite as severe with the first mission there with the Edgewater. Well, maybe, I guess it could be really if you want to. You have the choice to do that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of that as it comes back to the corporations, right? Like which one are you siding with? Which one are you not? And yeah, your decisions have like an effect on the people in the world, your companions, as I mentioned, and then just how the story unfolds and how people react to things as well.
Yeah, and that's something too. You know, most of these games, you know, you're playing it and you get your mission. It's like, okay, go do this, and you don't bat an eye at it. You just go and do it. But in this, you know, like especially that mission where it's like, okay, the option was presented now to choose, you know, Edgewater or this other village, and then you can feel the weight of that decision resting on your shoulders.
And it doesn't even feel like it doesn't feel like a balanced decision either, because I on my first playthrough I sided with Edgewater. On my second character I sided with the town, and I feel like siding with Edgewater is like far beneficial, right? Because the town is very small, has very little in it, but Edgewater has a lot more going for it. There's a lot more people to talk to and places to buy stuff from. So it feels like that decision isn't really balanced. Like it feels like there's a better choice in there, but then there's also the story ramifications of like, what kind of character am I? What would my character do in this situation? Who would they side with? Who would they think is right and wrong?
Yeah.
And do they even care? What is their concept of right and wrong? And I like to answer those questions. I love in these games when I can go in with like, oh, I'm going to play this kind of character this time around, and that's something that Bethesda has been slowly taken away from me as a player, I felt. So I'm super happy to be back in this kind of Morrowind-esque style where I can kind of go wherever I want, do whatever I want, be whatever kind of character I want, and then those decisions are actually going to have a meaningful impact on the world and how the game plays out.
Yeah, for
so, yeah, so far I'm really liking the quests. Some of them I will say are like pretty short, and I think they could have dived into a bit more, but it seems like there is so many of them that I'm sure... I mean, that's the thing with like all Bethesda games as well. Like, not every mission is going to be a 10 out of 10 because that's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
It also will depend on how you build your character and this, that, the other thing, if you did it early on or later on. But there's always like a few that stand out, and I think that'll be the case in Outer Worlds. There already has been a few that I think are really interesting, and yeah, I'm a big fan of the quest system. I mean, there isn't really much of a quest system. I guess there is like, companion quests, there's faction quests, there's story quests, there's side quests. So there is kind of different divisions of them as well, which give you different rewards and whatnot. But
it'll be interesting to see, you know, how many more like quests and like what kind of other stories they throw into the game over time too. Yeah,
I'm really curious. I mean, I guess it depends on sales, how well it does and whatnot, but I think this would be such an easy game to add DLC for, right? You just here's a new planet, here's a new landing pad you can go to, even on the Terra 2, the first planet you're on, like just add a new landing pad on the other side of the planet, has a different city here you didn't know about. There's other creatures. It would be super easy to shoehorn more content in, and obviously, I definitely want. I'm not even done the game yet, and I'm already down if they want to add more down the line. But I guess we'll see what happens when I'm done and feel like if that was enough content or not enough. Because that's, I mean, the game is on Game Pass. I got it on PS4, so I could record gameplay easier, and it's like, it's an expensive game. So am I going to get my money's worth out of it? And that's something I can't answer right now. But I don't know. I guess I have faith in Obsidian. They tend to put a lot of thought into their games and add a lot of replayability. I've already found that. Like my first and second character had very different kind of play styles and different outcomes of missions and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Missions. I kind of talked about the ones I wanted to. Oh, one other one I thought was kind of interesting was there's this one lady at a haberdashery. She's like a stylist person, and she just wants you to model like 3 different armor sets for her. So I just have to go out and I have found 2 of them now. So as soon as I'm through it, I can go back and do that mission, which is kind of just a weird little mission, right? Just collect these armor sets for this one thing. Maybe I'll get some bits out of it. Who knows? Another one where, and I think I kind of fucked it up, but you have to go, you get to do an audition for a movie. So you just act in a scene and you can like choose how to react. So you can be like, I kind of went with the overly cheesy reactions. I was like, very, expressive, I guess, in the actions I chose. You can kind of take it different ways. I didn't get a callback, so I don't think I exceeded. I don't know if that's only kind of a one and done quick mission or if there is like a bigger storyline there. that is definitely one on my next playthrough I don't want to mess up, or even one that I think I would save before doing it next time and see like, okay, can you get this like super right and actually get more out of this? Because this would be really fun. Like just go to this movie studio and act in this movie. It's a pretty cool like weird little storyline
That's very
once again, like the way I did it wasn't combat focused. One of the options did say attack, so I think I can just whip out my gun. I don't know if I could kill the other actor, or like I don't know. Like I'm sure you could, but yeah, there is a lot of goofy missions in there with the super serious ones as well. So seems like a really good mix so far. What other little details? I had a list of little details. I talked about most of them. Okay, so yeah, here's one. I just like the loading screens in general. Like, I mean, I'm not a fan of loading. I don't like to wait for things to load. It often takes me out of games. But I think they did a really good job of making like. Obviously, it just fits in with like that propaganda, right? Like just like an advertisement for this soda or something. Really, just beautiful art that they did there, all around. So it makes the loading screen interesting. You might actually learn something about the world. But one that I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory or if I just read it wrong or something. But so I made a choice on my second playthrough to go against Edgewater, and I kind of messed some people up. And let's say after I was done with that quest and I took their generator, I wasn't on their good side anymore. And then as I was leaving the planet, I got a loading screen with an ad that was talking about the atrocities of Edgewater, and it was like talking about a massacre that happened there. So I don't know if that was like a reactive ad that was like based on the decisions I made that came up later, and I don't know if you can see that in the world anywhere.
Interesting.
Maybe I read it wrong as well, because I mean it was just a loading screen.
Did you ever get that on your first playthrough? You said when you sided with Edgewater?
I didn't. I don't recall seeing that one when I was playing the first time.
It must be triggered based on your decision, which again that's very cool.
That's a level of detail that I don't think I've ever seen from a game. Like even just loading screens in general. I think a lot of companies, like if you're gonna have loading screens, you might as well do something with them. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting one, and I don't know. You don't see things like that very often. So I don't know if anyone else in the comments, if you experience the same thing, please let me know if that is true or if I conspiracy. I wasn't recording for that, unfortunately, so I can't go back and watch it. But maybe I'll see it again sometime, and if I do, I'll be sure to screenshot it, because that would be pretty cool.
It's really unique. Yeah, 100%.
Maybe they were talking about another atrocity that happened there. I'm not sure. Maybe it was me. Who knows? Either way, it's cool to have that feel like you had an effect on the world,
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. I had a list here of little annoyances. We talked about them, kind of the hotkeys map, microscopic text. Another one that's it's a weird one for me is, so you hold the square button to put your weapon away. So when I'm walking around town, I don't want my weapon out because, one, it's just not the kind of am. Sometimes I accidentally hit the shoot button and I've done that a couple times in Edgewater. I accidentally just shot. I didn't hit anyone, but I just shot some strays, and it's that's kind of a risky thing. But anytime you try to open a door, not anytime, but open a door or talk to someone, the square button also brings out your weapon. I think you have to hold it. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but I'm just way too often just when I'm walking around town, sneaking around talking to people, I'm just whipping out my weapon. So I don't know if it's the sensitivity of it or something. I don't think I can change that hotkey, but it's something that kind of bothered me. I feel like I'm putting away my gun more than I want to, because it just keeps popping out.
I never noticed anything like that. Usually my gun's just always hanging out. I'm just I'm just always holding it in my hand. But I do find that sometimes when you're trying to open certain doors or move to certain areas, I feel like I'm holding it for a long time, and I'm just watching it load around the Y button, waiting to just exit the ship or something. I feel like it's a long time.
Oh, the hold.
Yeah.
At least for hacking, that's intentional, right? And that's something you can actually lower on. But yeah, I think that's just for more committal decisions as well. So yeah, it doesn't come up. It's not every time, but it is noticeable. I guess that's you don't actually accidentally enter a loading zone. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the supernova difficulties. There's 4 difficulties. There's easy, normal, hard. I think that's what they're called. They're pretty basic. And then there's supernova. So the supernova one is obviously the highest difficulty. It's kind of like the hardcore mode, the survival mode. And it does a few interesting things, but also has a couple big cons in my opinion. One, it introduces the survival stuff. So you have to eat, you have to drink, you have to sleep, which I like those mechanics, because while they're not super in depth, for example, Outer. I'm playing Outer Worlds right now. I just recently played through Outer Wilds, and then earlier this year I played through Outward. So I'm just like,
Jesus
there's too many games this year
Christ.
that have out and then a W shortly
Yeah.
after. It's confusing me. Outward, I did a review on it. You can check it out. But it wasn't really much a review. I actually just talked about the survival mechanics because that was something that was so interesting to me. The game put a huge focus on making things like eating, sleeping, drinking, staying warm, not, just trying to veer away from frostbite, things like that. It like really made the traveling aspect interesting in that game, in that it made that like it had like gameplay systems around that to made the traveling interesting and made it feel like it had weight to it. Really felt like you were going somewhere. Whereas this game and Fallout as well, like the survival mechanics don't really feel much like survival mechanics. They're more like mini games or something. Like every once in a while, you just have to remember to take a drink of your soda or eat some food or sleep every once in a while. I still like those. I think they add just a little bit more. They're a little bit more fun. They add a little bit to collecting, where otherwise the food doesn't really have much of a purpose in the game, or the drinks, like unless they have a stats upgrades or something. But
Yeah.
it's something that I like, and it's only accessible in Supernova mode. But Supernova has a couple things that to me are really big problems. One is the companion death. So companions do die permanently after combat. They do not get up. They're just dead. There's no way to revive them. And it's too bad because, yeah, as you said, like the companions aren't the smartest. Even if you have them on passive, like they'll still get hit by a crossfire or die randomly, and they die really quickly, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so it just means I have to reload my save, which you've kind of been doing.
Oh,
You don't have to.
I don't have to.
Now that you know that, that's good. But it's a big problem in Supernova because, I mean, one, the difficulty's higher, enemies do more damage, so your companions die really quickly, and so it just like from my experience, I mean, you have to start with Supernova. You can't switch to it later, so you'd have to do it from level 1. From my experience, is like I can't bring companions with me. I just straight up can't because they'll just die. I'm going to lose their story aspect. I'm going to lose their expertise. So I can really only bring them around for towns, and then if I get to a difficult combat section, just send them back to the ship. But to me, that's a big problem because I love the companion system. We talked about it for like 20 minutes of how good and interesting the companion system is. So to me, that's a big problem that they're like. I think the solution would be if you gave more options to your companions, like they stand even further back, or they just hide. They run and hide if there's combat or something. But to me, I'd rather just have non-permanent death on them, or the ability to like put a inhaler in them to save them after they've died, like, or even just have a separate resource that's like revival fluid, or I don't know, something like that you can use on them. And maybe it's expensive, so you kind of have to think about how often you want to use it, how many companions you want to bring. But it just really, to me, feels like you can't bring companions if you want to go do combat sequences, which is a problem because that's such a great system.
Yeah, well, I guess it forces you to, outfit them properly, or, make sure they're...
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but even then, that's...
Yeah, I like, the thing is, I started on Supernova. Once you turn it off, you can't turn it back on. And when I was playing last night, I finally decided to turn it off for that reason, and one other I'll talk about in a minute. But I just felt like it was... I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't getting to experience that companion system. That my first character that I was playing, I had really high. What's the stat called for? It's like determination, inspiration, whatever. There's one that like just buffs your companions. Like there's a whole skill tree. Not skill tree, but skill allocated to it.
Yeah.
And I had that like really high up, so I was really using the companion as well. This second character doesn't really have doesn't really have high companion skills. More of a kind of lone wolf, but I still want to use those companions, and it's just. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like it's viable, honestly.
Oh, was it leadership? Is that it?
That's the one. Yeah, leadership, and then it's like inspiration and motivation or something like that. Yeah, but leadership is like the tagline it's under, so good remembering that. But yeah, it just does not feel like that's like a viable thing. And then the second thing that's really annoying about Supernova is you can't save whenever you want. You can only save in your ship or auto-saving. So auto-saving happens when you go through doors, which is fine. Like, I don't think the difficulty is too high to the point where I'm dying all the time, but sometimes I will die and lose like 20 minutes of progress, and then I just have to kind of go back and have the conversations that I've already had again, or my companion will die because they got hit by a fucking Raptidon's acid from like 100 feet away after one hit, and then I have to reload from a save. And there's kind of like a band-aid solution. I was like, I googled it. I was like, is there a way around this? Because like, I understand why they made it this way, right? You you're supposed to think about everything before you go into it, but it's just more tedious than anything. And one person had a somewhat of a band-aid solution where if you fast travel back to your ship, which you can only do outside, but still it's a decent enough band-aid, you get an autosave when you load or when you fast travel there, and then you can just load from that save. So you can kind of use that, but I was just feeling like between that and the companions, I just didn't really feel like Supernova was worth it right now. I'd like the survival mechanics, but I didn't feel like I was getting enough out of it to continue going with it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a difficulty thing. I really do feel like it was more of a tedium thing, and I feel like I maybe wasted maybe an hour or something of time just having to redo stuff, and I don't know, it was just kind of getting to me. So that's something I'd like to see them customize a bit. Like, if you want to put a trophy on there for Supernova difficulty, that's like, you got to do this on the hardest difficulty to prove you're the best, you get a trophy, that's fine. But at least let me, like, on hard mode play with survival mechanics, because why not? Like, that's just a system that I'm no longer going to get to experience because, I don't know, the the cons outweigh the pros on that one. So, yeah, between the loading and the companions, I feel like the Supernova difficulty needs a little bit of a rework, or even just ability to turn on survival mechanics straight up, because I think it's a fun thing to play with, and I don't know.
Well, it seems like an easy enough feature that they could just throw in there.
Seems really easy, yeah.
So I don't see why not. I mean, I definitely agree, though. I've spent so much time, loading back up and then going through like another 20 to 30 minutes of progress, and it's so annoying. It's one of my biggest pet peeves in games is redoing.
And that's it's funny because I wonder if Bethesda's ever wanted to do something like this, but they just can't because their games are so unstable that they crash all the time that they're legally not allowed to do it, because then people would be complaining all the time, oh, the game crashed and I lost an hour of progress.
Yeah.
Whereas Outer Worlds doesn't really have that problem. It doesn't crash at all for me. So I don't know, it seems like something they could just throw in there, and I don't really know why you wouldn't, It just adds a little bit more to the game. And I think it's cool too, because if you're not properly hydrated or you're not properly slept, your stats drop down. So you for skill checks or something in conversation, you might not be able to reach it because you're too drowsy to remember, oh, I knew that thing about the science stat for computers. I don't remember it anymore because I'm just too sleepy. And I think it fits really well. And I like having the detriment of not keeping a keen enough eye on the survival aspect. So I do want that. I want to get punished for not having to remember that, but I don't want to have to waste a half an hour having a conversation I've already had before. So I don't know, that's something I'd like to see them change, or who knows, maybe they'll implement I don't know why this is the new trend, but a new game plus system. I mean, I think this kind of game benefits more from just starting a new character and starting a new story, but I don't know, maybe that's something you could have with a new game plus system. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of one thing I'd like to see improved.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm missing out a bit. I want to get that aspect.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to check my notes here. Do you have any other I know I kind of just
No, I'm glad that you've
taken all the air here, but
I'm glad you've been taking it away, because you've got a much more, in-depth experience than I've managed to accumulate.
I have been waiting for this game for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have anything. You're bringing up points that I can piggyback off and ride off of, which is great. So,
yeah, I guess. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna. Or are you gonna rate this game? Definitely not, right?
Oh, there's no way I can. I can rate.
That's
not based on what I've done.
That's not fair. Yeah, I guess in closing for me, I love the companion system. It's so great. I can't wait till I have a 6-man crew, and I'm just individually for each mission or world deciding who I want to bring along to see how they decorate, hear the conversations, hear how fucking mad they are that I killed this person or didn't kill this person. And then, what was it? I had another thing I just wanted to talk about. What the heck was it? Yeah, I don't know. I think the main thing is that, but yeah, I just find myself getting lost, just looking around at the art in the world or getting lost in a conversation or something. There's so much wonder in here, and I feel like I have so much more to do, and I can already tell since I have started a second character, I can see how much replayability this game is going to have, and I can't wait to see how the story progresses and see how those corporations kind of bud their heads, as I'm sure they will. And there's even a couple other kind of surprising story moments or little side quests that I didn't want to mention, because I think if you're going to continue playing this game, I want you to experience it. I want everyone else listening to experience it for themselves. But there's some weird stuff that goes on, and I don't know. I just want to find out more. I want to find out what all the corporations' motivations are. I want to find out what they're trying to do in this world, who they're trying to take out, and I like that stuff isn't so it's not just explained to you, right? You have to go in and maybe talk to someone and pay them for some information or read it on a terminal or something like that. So overall, I'm loving this game. I don't know what's happening to my voice.
Jesus.
Oh my god, I need to drink some water or something. Overall, I'm loving this game so far, and I know I'm going to be diving back in even tonight and just playing some more. So yeah, I don't know. I would like to do a full review of this game, kind of like I did for Link's Awakening, but I have no promises on how soon I can do that. I mean, we have 20. I'm moving in 2 days. After that, we have a 24-hour stream. After that is Death Stranding. After that, I'm going to be playing Jedi Fallen Order after you guys. I want to play Luigi's Mansion as well. And then there's Disney Plus hits, and then Game Awards. So it's it's going to be super busy. So I'm going to try, and I just know how big of an undertaking it is to do a full breakdown review like I did for Link's Awakening on this game. So I'm going to try my best. But for now, I think we had a lot to talk about just after a few hours of play, and I'm happy that you joined me on this because I've been trying to get everyone else to play it, and
I think 100% everyone else in the cast needs to try this game.
Yeah,
I think it's unique, and everyone. I feel like mostly everyone jumped in on Fallout 4, and I feel like this would be up a lot of people's alleys.
It's just that was the other thing I wanted to mention was the dialogue. To me, it's like the companion system and the dialogue are the two things that stand out the most. I love the dialogue so much. It's quick, it's snappy, it's fun, it's don't do another voice protagonist ever, Bethesda. I don't think they can do it for Elder Scrolls because there's 9 races, male, female voice. That's a shit ton of work. So I don't think they'll ever do it for Elder Scrolls, which I'm thankful for. But please, Starfield, don't have a voice protagonist. Please, Fallout 78, whatever the hell they do next. I don't even know if I'll play it. Fuck that. No, I will. Hopefully no voice protagonist. It just takes away from so much creativity you can have with the dialogue.
Yeah.
So I think this game proves why that's the case. So
yeah. It's just proven to be a phenomenal game. I thoroughly am enjoying it. Just the amount of time I've spent in the world.
I know you kind of have to dive back into COD, so I don't know when you're gonna get to play this game again.
Oh well, the nice thing about COD is I can just sit down for 20 minutes, play one or two matches, and then invest 2-3 hours in Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
So that's definitely that's my go-to game between now and Luigi's Mansion is when I have a little bit of break of time. I'm gonna put on Outer Worlds and just continue my progression and see where I get. That because you said it. We got Luigi's Mansion and so many other things coming, so it's going to be hard. But this is a game I want to invest more time in because it's so beautiful.
At least before Game Awards, so you can have a little bit more of an opinion when that comes around. I don't know where this will be in there. I'm curious if it's going to be in Game of the Year contender. I mean, we still have possible Game of the Year contenders in Death Stranding. I don't know if Luigi's Mansion will, but Jedi Fallen Order seems like it's getting some good buzz. So who knows? But I'm sure it'll show up in RPG or I don't know, visuals or something. I'm not sure where it'll show up, but hopefully it does.
Yeah, and deservingly so. I mean, it's such a beautiful game, and I love that it feels, completed. And to me, I definitely feel, there's an Elder Scrolls, a bit of an aesthetic from Elder Scrolls, like a vibe of it, but then it doesn't feel like it is. It feels totally unique, but it's something that I could easily kind of connect and dive right into because it was something I was familiar with, but new at the same time.
It's such a unique setting, just the corporation taking over the spatial colonies. That's such a wild aesthetic, and they've really brought it to life. And it makes me wonder what Starfield is going to be. Is that going to be like this game? I don't know. I'm sure it will in some ways, and going from planet to planet. Maybe not exploring the full planet, but definitely not. But exploring, smaller areas like this. I wonder, and I wonder if Bethesda's mad. I think they kind of are. That's the vibe I got when they released their stupid Fallout First, whatever it's called, earlier this week. All their games are on sale right now, and part of that Fallout First was the Fallout New Vegas armor set. So I feel like that was definitely throwing some shade over Outer Worlds' way. So I don't know. Hopefully they climb out on top, and I don't think there's any way they lose to Fallout First, at least. So
no, not a chance. Gee, what a trash idea. I do think they've totally got the market right now in terms of these kind of games, and I think that Obsidian did such a great job. And I think if Bethesda wants to come out on top, Starfields needs to do everything that this game has done and then some. They need to really sell it and really either make the world, be able to go through every door, go into every building at night or whatever and creep, They have to really just expand on that world.
Yeah.
But
all those little details.
All those little details, but so far, and it increased the size of the words too. But,
Jesus, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the most important. But I think Obsidian has definitely set the bar.
What if that was like a
high.
skill? Like if your perception stat is higher, it makes like the letters bigger. Oh my god, that would be like full role play. That's not the case. I have really high perception. It's not any bigger than my first character who had little perception, but that would be a wild concept.
Super subtle too. Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. Is that all our Outer Worlds thoughts?
I think that's all I got. Just go play the game.
Go play the game. If you're on Game Pass, it's free. I mean, from my experience so far, 15 hours in, I could recommend it as a full price game. Though that is like maybe uneducated to say that, but I think it's getting pretty good reviews overall as well. So I don't know. It seems like most people are enjoying it as well. So.
Yeah, well, Black Friday is around the corner, so maybe a deal,
That's true.
Then if it's on sale, definitely get it for sure.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. And then it's coming to Switch at some point too. I'm curious for that. Like, if it runs well, I could definitely see myself picking it up there. I don't think it's going to run very well. That's my opinion. It's going to have like 3-hour-long load screens going in and out of Edgewater. But yeah, that's all we have to say on Outer Worlds for now. I definitely have more to say at some point in time. So whether that's kind of Game Awards talk, whether that's a full review, yet to be seen. But thanks for tuning into this. I plugged all the game reviews that we're doing at the start. But yeah, once again, November 2nd, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Check us on Twitch TV, maybe YouTube, at least Twitch. That's for sure. I don't know what other places we're going to stream to, but yeah, join us for some madness there. Tell your friends. Just come say hello. If you can't donate, that's totally fine. Just pop in the chat. Tell us what's up. Tell us your thoughts on Outer Worlds if you're hanging out there. And I don't even know what our next weekly cast is going to be like. Probably
idea.
Luigi's Mansion at some point, but we're just fully focused on the stream right now. Yeah. So I can tell you this: November is going to be crazy between Disney Plus dropping, between all those game reviews, more news, I'm sure, and then that's leading right into new Star Wars. So yeah, we have a loaded couple months here for you. So definitely subscribe on your YouTubes, your Apple Podcasts, your Stitchers, your Google Plays. Check us out on Patreon, where we're always dropping every episode ad free, which is pretty cool. We're also doing After Nines pretty regularly, and we're going to record some more in December at least one in November. So definitely some fun topics to be found there as well. What am I forgetting? Facebook, Twitter, Geekverse. Just search Geekverse and you'll find us. Twitter, I think, is a great place for updates on the stream, where to find us, what time, what we're doing, like what event we're on. So if you can't tune in the whole time and you're just like, oh, I really want to see the sports three-way title match, if you're tuning in on Twitter, you can see when that's going to happen. I'm sure that'll be updated frequently. So definitely check out all those places. What do you got?
You just reminded me. I should have shouted this out at the beginning of the cast, but ladies and gentlemen, there's a new Roddernaut episode out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been
dude, that fucking... I don't want to spoil it, but at the end, it's fucking gross.
You watched it?
I watched
you enjoyed it?
Disgusting.
Oh, Ruben wasn't happy.
Disgusting.
Yeah, no, it's been a year since we got another episode. We do have another episode that is in the works, and it's just it's getting polished off, and I'm gonna try to make sure.
But this is a Halloween one, so go watch it right now.
Go watch it right now. It's been a lot of work put into it, and there will be more Roddernaut content coming your way. But check it out.
All right, that's it from us. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you on the 24-hour. That's the next time you'll see us. Well, maybe Modern Warfare for you. Other than that, you're going to see us on the 24-hour stream.
Well, yeah.
Go check it out. Thank you so much. See you later.
Bye-bye. That was a good spicy cast.